Cool. Can everyone see my screen and cover slide?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. So I can't see you guys. Let me see. Is there a way I can get that? There we go. Okay, now I can see you guys. Can you?
Yeah, we see that though.
Yeah, that's the problem. Get a second monitor. Okay, I'll just minimize that. There we go. So, thanks for joining us. Thank you for all your prayers and financial support for our sabbatical/missions trip to Costa Rica. This is a map of the country. Any kickoff comments you'd like to jump in and share, Ellen? Yes.
Matt, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How big is Costa Rica, like relative to like a U.S. state? Is there a comparison, or I've never been there?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I would say it's like bigger than North Carolina, but it's probably around the same size as North Carolina. What Costa Rica doesn't have that the states have is just well-engineered highways that allow you to get from point A to point B in a quicker time. It probably takes about 2/3 the time to go somewhere that it would in the States. So I'd say it's about the size of North Carolina. I don't know why that comes to mind, but Ellen, did you see that you were on mute?
Yeah, Emma's talking. So I just looked that up real quick, Chris, and it says it's similar to West Virginia or Denmark. So.
Okay,
so
thanks.
The points we're going to, great question. Yeah, jump in and ask questions. The points we're going to hit is we're going to talk about the sabbatical, what inspired it. We're going to talk about the missionaries we connected with, the work we did while we're at the missionaries, people we met working down there. We'll have a little tidbit about the food, and then our last week of vacation, closing with the just reflections from the trip. The trip was inspired by a famous internationally known graphic designer by the name of Stefan Sagmeister. He's an Austrian designer that lives in New York, but he got his start designing record covers anyway. He got in the idea of taking a sabbatical every 7 years for a year because he found that creative types that took extended periods of time off, oftentimes they were more creative during their time off. And so this is part of the reason that companies like 3M and Google give 15 to 20% of their staff's time for basically personal use. And there's a strong connection to time off and creativity. And I think this is where the 3M Post-it notes kind of came out of some of this time. The previous slide shows perhaps the world's most famous chef. He's a Spanish chef, and he takes 5 months off every year to kind of be creative. Ellen, were you going to jump in and say something? So these are the players for the sabbatical. This is we're in this candid shot here. This is sort of end of our trip. But where were we? We were at the mission was at Oasis Nueva Ferez, which is just north of San Jose, north and west. We're on the side of a volcano. You can see the yellow star there. Zooming in a little closer, you can see that really north of where we were, there wasn't much in the way of roads. If you wanted to go into civilization, you had to go down the side of the volcano. And the actual Oasis site itself was sitting at 5,000 feet in elevation. The weather there was it was perfect. It was about 70 to 80 in the middle of the day and nice and cool in the evening for sleeping. This shows a site map of the missionaries compound. The main house is in white roof. The casita, which we stayed at, is in the red roof. And then the construction site was in the teal rectangle. And that was where we were building the new structure. You can see to the north and to the east, those are coffee fields at one time. This whole sort of, I don't know if you're, I don't know if you're familiar with the geographical term alluvial fan, but we were essentially on the peak of an alluvial fan, which is essentially a ridge. And at one time, that whole ridge was covered with coffee farms. And so more and more gringos are retiring down there, and so there's more houses being built. But it was a pretty gorgeous view. The reason that the missionaries wanted to build the second casita is because they're currently at maximum occupancy with their missions organizations. Jumping to the missions work, this is Ben and Krista Balke. We connected with them at Central Manor Camp Meeting. Their mission is supported by Central Manor Camp Meeting, and that's where we met them. Again, they're Ellen, do you remember the name of the term, the typology of missions that they do? Our church just had a missions conference, and we found several missionaries at that conference did this type. Do you remember that term, Ellen?
What was sorry, I had to get Emma. What was the term?
The type of missions that they...
Oh, the member care.
Member care, yeah. It's called member care. And basically it's a retreat for pastors, missionaries, and Christian leaders to get some rest and spiritual renewal. So they're very, when they're opened, when their mission has scheduled openings, they fill very quickly, and they're looking to kind of double that occupancy.
So when we were there, they did not actually have anyone on the retreat. We were just, working on our project. So it was just us. It was their kids, end of the year from school. So
yeah, they had a little hiatus within their schedule. Their kids were off of school for the year. Jumping into the work. This is an architectural elevation of the project when we first received basically early concept images. What you can see from this image is that the site plan is exactly flat and level. And then that got modified to the reality of the situation being on a sloped side of a volcano. So an updated architectural drawing section shows, you can see the terrain kind of sloped down. And then the goal for our portion of the construction project was to complete this highlighted portion in magenta. As far as the construction project, our family did have several other responsibilities and service projects around the site, but this, which Ellen will speak to in a little bit, but this was the construction portion of the service project. So you can see there's site clearing, there's laying out the site, and then ideally we would get the bottom whole deck framed. This is an architectural plan showing the footers that we had to dig. We had to dig 16 of these footers once the site was cleared and the construction site was laid out. One of the things that we did prior to going there was look at these drawings and plan logistics. I've heard several other missionaries going to Costa Rica or different countries for missions trips, and they ran out of supplies or they didn't have enough supplies. But Ben and Krista assured us that the materials were ordered and the site was cleared and we were ready to begin construction. But actually, this is what we saw when we first got there. So we did have some site clearing to do. No, actually, this is what we saw when we first got there. But you can see here in this site that there were several trees that we needed to cut down. And you can barely make out in the end of this slide that you can see the casita which we stayed in for the duration of our stay. This shows a Panama team that joined us for the first week. It was a church from Panama sent 32 high school age kids to camp and to help with the construction, and they were a huge asset in getting the construction part moving forward. Here you can see Gerardo with a chainsaw cutting down some limbs. They moved timber. Again, we laid out the site, putting up batten boards, using a plumb bob to figure out where each of these structural columns needed to go. And then once the footers were located, the digging could begin in these locations. And it was a huge help. Basically, while I was laying out the site, we were able to lay out one portion so the Panama team could begin digging the footers. Shot of Isaac in the footers. The kids love to play in the construction site, mostly in the evenings, but sometimes they'd be coming up to dig as well in the middle of the day. Digging footers. There's Emma. Can you see yourself, Emma? Here's some more shots of the Panamanians. This was a trip. Once we started digging the footers, we had to make a trip to the local lumber yards to get board. Basically, I made a cut list, and the missionary Ben went down, and you can see all the footer boards in the center of the photo. They would be what we used to use the form boards, which would contain the concrete wherever we wanted it located. This is a sketch of the form boards, basically materials calculations, takeoffs. This is Franklin. He was another leader from the church in Panama, laying out the footers, the framing square, and a Sharpie marker. This is an outdoor kitchen that they had at the site. It was also doubled nicely as a work tables and a workstation, partly because there was electric there, but also there was countertop height. Here's another shot of Gerardo running the skill saw. These guys didn't have a whole lot of access they were from Panama City, Panama, so they were in an urban environment. So they loved access to power tools and that sort of stuff. And it was just a fun crew to work with. This is a shot of myself and two of the leaders from Panama team. Cutting rebar for the metal structure. This is a shot of all three of us working together. There's a shot of Ellen tying the form boards, the rebar structure. Our nephew William joined us for 1 week, and he has not had much exposure to manual labor, so we got him working with tools to tie rebar and also pour concrete. Once the rebar, so the second week we were there, the Panama team went back to Panama, and William came in right around, I guess William came the third week, so there was a week between, but just in time to locate the form boards and begin pouring the concrete. This is just bringing in the gravel to pour the concrete. Shot of the boys with shovels. This is I guess this was at the end of a day of pouring concrete. There's William and Isaac working in the concrete bags, and we had to wheelbarrow all the concrete to the location. It was up a little bit of a hill. It wasn't too bad, but any farther and it could have really slowed down the process. One thing we had is we weren't too far. We were about 35 minutes from a town, 20, depending how the traffic was. But when we got the concrete mixer, then we realized that we needed to run electric out to it. And so the missionary went for electrical wire, and then he realized he didn't have the right breaker to attach it to his panel. So there's always these logistics. Fortunately, there was plenty of work to keep everyone busy, but it was just a shot to remind us of just the logistics, and you're just not 5 minutes from a hardware store like we might be in the States or in Lancaster County. Here's pouring concrete. This is a local, he was a Nicaraguan immigrant to Costa Rica, Jose, and he was a huge help. He was the local gardener, but he was really strong, and he could do almost any type of work around the construction site. Once we had the columns poured, we had to attach threaded bolts and a plate so we could do weld the structural members onto the foundation. Locating center for the structural members. This is Lazaro, or Lazarus in English. He was a Cuban. He fled Cuba in December of 2023 just because he could barely feed his family with all the restrictions that they had on just in the socialist communist country of Cuba. So he was happy to be in Cuba. He was a minister in Cuba. Really nice guy. Super high energy. Great to work with. Here you can see we're framing out the metal portions. leveling them out. This little image on the right is a water level, so you can see that without a laser level, like we might have in the States, you resort to a very I don't want to say primitive, but more of an older technique that works just as well. And it was fun to employ this technique. Here you can see Lazaro and I sort of communicating, do we raise or lower the 2x6 metal framing? Here's a shot of me stick welding. The metal there, to keep it from rusting, was galvanized, but it really made me sick. This was the 4th week we were there, and I took all the 4th week to weld the structure. During this time, the zinc that off gassed when you welded, it was making me very sick. So I was low energy, had major headaches, and I think it was definitely, most Costa Ricans are very laid back. However, Lazaro was very like, let's go, let's keep moving. And I think the illness and my lack of energy was certainly a challenge to him. This is a shot of a lot of the hand tools that I brought from the States to work on the project. We did pick up a couple tape measures down there and string bubbles, just because I didn't have any metric tape measures in the States. So the goal was, this is a elevation showing the original goal of what we hope to complete, and then this is what we actually did complete. So we were pretty close. Part of the fundraising that we did through donations from family and friends, we were able to give $4,600 to the missionaries to help fund this project. And that $4,600 that went straight to the missionaries, we cut them a check when we got there. It funded all the materials to construct the portion of the project that we completed. So it purchased all the materials to accomplish the original goal. So that's the concrete, the rebar, the shovels that they had to buy to dig, the pickaxes, the 2x6 metal. They had to purchase a welder to weld, the rental of the concrete mixer. And so that was a real blessing. They do, because we didn't finish it and we didn't get it painted, they do need to paint and do a little bit more welding work. And the missionary estimated that would have a $900 cost. So if you know anybody that's interested in donating more to that cause, I'm sure the missionaries we can connect you with them. Additionally, the missionaries are looking for, if you know anybody that wants to take a construction team down there to help work on the casita, they're open to that. They do have a team. Ellen, do you remember where the team was from that's coming in? I think they have a team coming in May of this year.
I think they're a team from Reading.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so interestingly enough, a team from Reading, Pennsylvania is going down to continue the construction. This is Ellen.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
how much more work is required, would you estimate, to complete the project?
They think maybe about a week of work.
Oh, okay, that's not very much.
Yeah, one of the frustrations I had was we met with some contractors that were going to help me that last week with the welding, and I thought that we could have got it wrapped up in that last week had the missionary hired those contractors. But the missionary, Ben, was like, so we met with them on a Friday, and then around Sunday afternoon, Ben, the missionary, came to me. He's like, Matt, we're not going with them. I was like, oh yeah, why's that? He's like, it's like too expensive. He Ben really is resourceful with the money he gets, and so that was a little frustrating to me because I thought we could have wrapped it up in that week with those 2 extra guys, and because they were experienced welders like myself. But yeah, Chris, to wrap up that first deck and to where you'd be framing walls, the upper walls above that magenta area, he estimates between painting it and the little bit of welding that's left is about $900. So,
Okay.
good question. Any other
So Matt,
questions?
just to clarify what Chris said, were you saying that the whole project could have been completed in you think in just one more week? Like the framing and the roof and all the siding, is that what you're saying?
No, so
If you had the right help, or just our portion of?
just our original goal of getting basically there's one little, it's hard to see in this image, but there's little 3x3 cross members that original pocket of money purchased. So there's a little bit of metal framing to do. There's this end green column and a couple pieces out to the right, and then painting. So they figured it'd take about a week of work.
So the next portion is about what the rest of the family was doing. And the kids were helpful when they could be around the construction site, like Matt was saying. But a lot of the times we were homeschooling or doing odd jobs around the property. So gardening, you can see we did a bunch of gardening, pulling weeds out and getting the beds ready for planting. And I think some of the next slides will show us painting the shed, a tool shed.
The kids loved this project. They were just ecstatic to paint this tool shed.
Yeah. So we really wanted to, have the kids involved. So it wasn't just like a go and play trip, but they were actually, helping and learning that, work ethic. So, and I can go to the next one there, Matt. Oh yeah, and this was another project, just scraping off. There was a outside porch that needed some maintenance, so we scraped off the old paint and then repainted it. That was when the Panama team was here, so the boys were good at chipping the paint off.
Yeah, when I guess the missionaries, the Balky family, during their school break, they really used that season to kind of just do deferred maintenance on the site. And so here you can see the boys working. I think, was this with the Panama team, Ellen, when they were scraping
that's
paint?
right. Project was with the Panama team.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, just helping move stones, and Knox was working on putting some finish on some boards for a little structure, just more of their work. So, and then like I mentioned, there's a little bit of homeschooling we had just about every day, a little, if it was in the afternoon during our quiet times or in the morning.
This next section covered a couple of the people that we met and worked with. That looks like a blank slide. This is this is the Balkies. They you can see them. They have a little pizza oven that's kind of behind me, and this was just a little. They had this outdoor seating area, so it was a place that we spent lots of time with, whether it was church or just with Balkies hanging out. Why that? Okay, here we go.
Those were just some ways that we connected with people in the community. There was a house church that we were able to connect with people week after week and get to know them. One of the things that was really neat about this trip was we really got to build relationships with people and get to know people in the community. This is most of the Panama team. When we did a kids club the first week with them, they completely organized it. We just showed up. It was all in Spanish, and the teens really did a nice job with different stations, and there's games and crafts and Bible verses, and then there was a message, and they invited, I think the first day there was probably about 60 kids from the community who came, and they recruited everyone, and so that's the team.
This was Jose the gardener. I don't know if this little video. Jose, there's a large, very charismatic. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right word. I guess charismatic would describe it. But this guy was just a solid Christian. So it was just fun to, he was the kind of guy that was going to church at least once in the middle of the week and then once on the weekend. But it sounded like he just had a vibrant church community that he was part of. As a side note, Nicaraguans, the local Costa Ricans don't love Nicaraguans, and so I didn't feel the pressure, the tension of that, the two nationalities intermixing, but apparently it's something that happens there. This guy was just a bundle of joy, though.
This was the day that we spent with the animal team. As soon as they worked for maybe 5 days, and then last day they took a trip to the beach, so we joined along with them and got to take a little day off with them. So that's what these pictures are from.
This was Lazaro, the Cuban refugee, and the pastor. The shot of he and I as we were leaving. This was Joel and Krista McCutcheon. I met Joel when I was on a missions trip in 1999 in Poland, and he became a full-time missionary after that trip to Poland. And he and his wife, they do this member care missions in Costa Rica. Ellen and I got to touch base with them 10 years ago when we were in Costa Rica for our honeymoon. But it was just great to reconnect with a brother and sister in Christ who we've known for over 20 years, and yeah, it was good to catch up with them, and to hear two missionaries from America in Costa Rica. The conversations they had was just really fascinating, and kind of sad a little bit. It sounds like a lot of missionaries are just exhausted. Do you have any comments on that, Ellen?
These were just some friends from the house church, so the kids would see these children each week. Knox seemed to get along well with this little boy. His name is Ishmael, and they would play cards together or play soccer together. So just fun to have a friend, and despite language barriers, they were able to connect and have fun. So
It seems like with kids, you kind of make friends wherever you go. This was on a rest day. They were about 3 hours, 2.5 hours from the beach. So if we had a rest day, we would go to the local beach. And this was a shot of when you have kids. It's just like a friendly invite to make friends. This was the surf instructor's kids, and they loved Emma and the boys as well. Surf shot. The food. This is a local Federia or market. The burgers weren't quite like we have in the States, but they were pretty good. The bananas were amazing. All the fresh fruits, the pineapples, all of that was just fabulous. Really good. I don't know what the boys are looking at in that picture, but they. Banana. That's right, Emma. Shot of local food. Gallo Pinto is a local recipe. The image to the right is just down just basically could hike from the missionary compound down to this little creek, and you had to hike through a banana plantation to get to this waterfalls. And we made it there. We made a hike there a couple times. It was a lovely hike. This is a shot of the pizza oven in action. Can you guys not hear this video playing? You can't hear the video?
Nah.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, guys. I thought you could hear the video. So after 4 weeks, our last week, we went out to this Peninsula de Nicoya on the Pacific coast. Sorry about that. I thought you could hear the audio. This Peninsula de Nicoya, which is out on the Pacific coast. My first time in Costa Rica in 2005. I went out there and spent quite a bit of time, so it was fun to revisit some of the turf that I spent in there. But the Peninsula de Nicoya is one of a few what's called blue zones around the globe. A blue zone is a region with higher than usual number of people where they live to an age that's much older than the average person. And here you can, in this shot, it shows like Japan, Greece, Italy. There's one spot in the States. So here's a shot out there. We're just north of the beach town called Tamarindo. We were at a little, basically, it was perfect for a family, a sleepy little beach town called Playa Grande. It wasn't very developed, but there was good, you could walk everywhere. There was good restaurants, but that's about it. A lot of just larger houses. We spent a lot of time, Knox and I, and we surfed almost every day. This is a friend that Ellen made while we were there. This is a shot of Brendan on the beach. Here you can see that it's pretty low key, and there's no not a whole lot of, there's zero buildup. This is a little surf shot, surfing into the beach, and shot of Ellen and I. Any comments on our last week, Ellen?
No, I mean, I think it was just relaxing, a good chance to kind of debrief and yeah, kind of take it all in. So yeah, it was a nice change up.
And then reflections. This was a shot. This is a candid photo I dropped in. I think one of the reflections I had was just kind of the transformation of going from not speaking a language, not knowing anybody, not knowing the geography or the roads, to, picking up enough Spanish to feel comfortable communicating with people, which is very helpful when you're trying to navigate your family through a country that is completely unknown. You don't know if there's going to be stranger or friends. And so we had a flat tire at one point, and we had to get it fixed, and had to run into like a local town that wasn't touristy at all. And it was just that transformation of basically being fearful to being confident that you can communicate with people. A huge learning thing for me. Ellen, you want to read these?
Yeah, sure. So for me, Matt spoke to some of his challenges. I think just adjusting to a new schedule. Anytime you have a lot of little people you're in charge of, getting everyone's on a different schedule. Just living out of a suitcase, kind of being in someone else's space, and yeah. And then just me trying to find ways to help the kids to be part of the team, as far as like projects and keeping them busy and motivated to get work done. And for me, I was just thinking, I was wanting to be able to help. I was envisioning myself being able to help more in projects, or help more when the Panama team was there, help in the kitchen more. But the kids just took a lot more of my time, just managing and keeping them busy. So that was one thing that I just grew content with, just being able to be with the kids. And then I just relying on others for daily things, like not having a car. You can't go anywhere. You can't just go get groceries whenever you want. It's a favor to ask of someone, or a long trip on a bus, or just doing laundry in someone else's space, things like that, that are that we just kind of take for granted here. So, and with the kids, I think it was the hard point was with the Spanish club, the Bible club. just being completely immersed in the language and yeah, being around the people they didn't know, and then long car rides for the kids, and then just finding that motivation to work hard every day. So those were some challenges that as a family we were overcoming, and thankful for the grace of the people we were with, and thankful for God's yeah, providence and protection, and the work that we were able to accomplish.
Yeah, I would say in a lot of ways, other challenges were just, it felt daunting before we even knew where we were going to land. We had this idea that we wanted to do this. We didn't think we were going to leave the States initially. We thought we might be too dangerous to travel to a different country. But once Ellen and I sort of created the vision, we started emailing people. We must have emailed maybe at least dozens, but maybe even as many 100 different people. Hey, we'd love to come connect with you guys, and can you take a family? And there was just lots of basically non-responses, or hey, that probably wouldn't work for us. And just for a church or a missions organization or a farm to take a family of 6 people is a huge ask. And but God really answered our prayers and connected us with, we really enjoyed our time with Ben and Krista. And so I think we were very spiritually compatible with them. And so that was a huge blessing as well. And then of course, all the, you just like when you're on a missions trip like that, it feels like you see God answer prayer in real time in a way that you might not always acknowledge in everyday life. So yeah, I think just getting, go ahead, Ellen.
I was just gonna jump back, piggyback on what you said, and just how we would send weekly prayer updates, and just since we were there for an extended amount of time, being able to see how God was working throughout our time there, looking back, oh yeah, this is what we did, this, and then being able to write in our letters how God was answering prayers.
Yeah, there was one time where one of the Panamanian leaders basically had sunstroke and was rushed to the hospital. We were able to get prayer requests out over social media and Instagram, and they thought that he was having heart issues, and it was just fun to see God answer prayers in real time. So, and maybe this is like Ellen's slide, how God's worked through it all.
Yeah, those are just some examples of that we were talking about, just having enough funds, God's providence in the fundraising that we were able to do that kind of filled in some holes and gaps that the missionaries were still needing. That's the first point there. And then just for protection and health, just different sicknesses like Matt was mentioning with Jose and the man, and then just various injuries throughout the time. And we were just thankful for the Panama's team, their helpfulness and their patience with the kids, and it was one of the things that I really enjoyed, was being able to see a different part of the world and hear how God was working in the hearts of the people, and just in that part of the world. So just the encouragement in our walks with the Lord, just in being able to fellowship with other believers. So
this is a little video of the landslide. I'll skip ahead a little bit here. This is where you won't hear the sound, but you'll see the earth fall here in a second. We were literally, the kids were right there just prior to that earth slide. It's just a great example of how God was going before us and answering prayers.
Can you play it again, Matt?
Yeah.
It didn't really work. It was not working. But for those of you who don't know, if we play this on audio again, playback, but we were standing some of the kids were standing right there, and then you can see how it fell right where the kids were. So that was just a clear example of God's provision and protection, and just just a shocking things happen to us. So we're very thankful.
How shooken up were you guys after that?
This is a little video of me talking. Like, you probably
You
can't
probably
hear
won't
it.
really hear it in that. Yeah. You might just have to skip it.
So basically,
We
I'm
can't.
just narrating that we were there right on where it fell, and I told the kids to get right out of there, turn around and land, or to get. It all happened. To be honest, Chris, it all happened so quick. I didn't have time to be scared. It was just like, we just got to get out of there. So.
I think for us, it's probably more of like looking back and being like, wow, like that's something really, really tragic could have happened, and just processing it that way.
Yeah, the next steps for the Oasis is Ben and Krista. If you're at Central Manor Camp meeting this year, look them up. They'll be there all year. But they're raising funds for the house and looking for construction teams to come down and do construction. So, thank you very much for all your prayers and financial support and asking questions and watching YouTube videos and encouragement along the way. It was a lot of fun. A lot of work.
Does anyone have any other questions for us right now?
When's the next one?
Maybe in 7 years, we'll see. It'll who knows? It's too soon to tell. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Safe drive home to you, Chris.
Yep.
Thanks, guys. That was cool.
Yep.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for sharing.
Welcome.
Yeah.
See you later.
Thanks for joining.
Yep.
Take care.
Bye.
Did you stop the recording? Or is it still recording?